We're learning this week Parashat Vayigash. Parashat Vayigash is the second to last Torah portion in the first book, the book of Genesis. And it's a perfect continuation of last week's Torah portion, which dealt to us with the back and forth between Joseph and his brothers. Now, his brothers didn't know who he was. Joseph surely knew who he was. The Torah tells us that they didn't recognize him. However, he recognized them. And there are different commentaries to why and how is it that Joseph's brothers didn't recognize him, yet he could recognize them. One main commentary explains that, remember, Joseph left when he was age 17. And at 17, most 17-year-olds either don't have too much facial hair or have very little or none at all. So Joseph was one of those boys who had no facial hair. And today, standing at 39 years old, he definitely had a nice beard going on. And for that reason, they did not recognize who Joseph was. Another explanation, which doesn't necessarily conflict with that one, is that they never imagined in their wildest dreams that the most powerful man in the world is their younger brother, because that would be a fulfillment of their nightmares. I don't want to call them dreams, but for them, a fulfillment of their nightmares. So Joseph's brothers never had the concept in their lexicon that their brother, their little baby brother, was this man. The Torah tells us that when Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, he used a very famous line, and I'll quote to you the verse. The verse is in chapter 45, verse 3. It says, Vayomer Yosef, and Joseph says, Elechav, to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph, Ha'od Avi Chai, is my father still alive? We'll get to that. Velo yachelu echav la'anot oto, his brothers could not answer him. Ki nivhalu mipanav, they were disconcerted, they were caught aback. They were embarrassed. They were ashamed. How could this be our brother? There's a very famous midrash, which is quoted by a lot of our commentaries. The Zera Shimshon himself quotes it as well. This midrash is in Midrash Rabbah, and it says as follows: Oy lanu miyom adin, oy lanu miyom atochecha. Woe to us will be our day of final judgment, and woe to us from our day of rebuke. And the Midrash continues and says, we can learn a kal vachomer. A kal vachomer is one of the 13 methods of learning and extrapolating Torah concepts that our sages and God gave to us through the Torah. Kal means something light, and chomer means something heavier. Meaning, if I can pick up a tissue, well, of course I could pick up the whole tissue box. That would be a very basic kal vachomer. So the Midrash says as follows: if Joseph, who's the baby brother to his older brothers, gives them a rebuke, and they can't even answer him, what's going to be with us, who when at 120, when a person passes on, we're going to have our day of judgment, and we're going to have our day of rebuke, and God will be the one rebuking us? How could we answer? Meaning, if older brothers can't even answer their baby brother on a one-time mistake, let's face it, that's all they did was they sold him. It was tragic, it was horrible. But what are we going to answer when it's coming from on top? When God is the one giving us our judgment and our rebuke, how could we answer God? This is what the Midrash says. The Zera Shimshon wonders, I love the concept. Woe to us on the day of our judgment. Woe to us on the day of our rebuke. And the point of this midrash is to shake us up and wake us up for, hey, everything we do in life, we're going to have an accounting. We're going to be judged. We are going to be either given reward or the opposite. It's a great concept. But the Zera Shimshon says, why the need to make this kal vachomer, to learn from this situation of Joseph and his brothers not being able to answer, to our eventual situation that we won't be able to answer God. What is the point of drawing that connection? We could have learned how stringent and severe our judgment and rebuke will be without connecting it to Joseph and his brothers. This is the Zera Shimshon's question. And the Zera Shimshon answers. And it's really answering, how is it that Joseph's brothers couldn't answer? Think of it in our own lives. Whenever somebody tells us something that we've done wrong, they criticize, they rebuke, they even tell us off. More often than not, we act immature and we try to rationalize. We try to give an excuse. And the brothers this time around had no excuse to give. Really? Why not? All they did was throw their brother in a pit and sell him off as a slave. It's not the worst they could have done. I mean, they could have killed him. They could have done horrible things to him. They could have caused him physical suffering with their own hands, if we could imagine. They could have just said, you were driving us crazy. Your nightmares were coming true. Whatever it was. But they couldn't answer? I mean, think of it. How many times does your spouse tell you things and she or he puts you against the wall, and boy, do you come up with a great answer. Couldn't Joseph's brothers come up with something? So they really couldn't. You know why? The Zera Shimshon says, this encounter at the beginning of this week's Torah portion is not the first time they meet. Think of it. In last week's Torah portion, when they came in and they passed border control, they were all summoned to Joseph, not knowing who he was. Joseph sold them food, put the money back in their bags, took Shimon, sent them home, told them to bring their brother back, interrogated them. They came back, sold them food again, sent them off. He put his goblet, he planted his goblet in Benjamin's sack. They came back. He saw him multiple times. The brothers saw Joseph as this viceroy, not identifying him multiple times until Joseph revealed who he was and he said who he was. They were so embarrassed. They couldn't take the shame. What does that have to do with anything? Listen to the connection. The same way Joseph was not able to be identified by his brothers, so too in our lives. After 120, the Zera Shimshon explains, when we will be judged, our sins, our transgressions, our shortcomings will not be identifiable to us. We won't even know. We'll go through life not even realizing the shortcomings we have committed, our very own failures, because we look over them. We don't even pay attention. Joseph was seen by his brothers numerous times, but until Joseph articulated, I am Joseph, is our father still alive? They get shocked. He comes back and he says, I am Joseph, your brother, the one who you sold, and I forgive you. They had nothing to say. They were caught aback. They were stunned. They were shocked. The reason why the Zera Shimshon says, the Midrash draws the connection between the lighter weight situation of Joseph's brothers not being able to answer their baby brother to us being rebuked by God is to show us we won't have an answer. Unfortunately, God will come and he will show us different things that we have done wrong, and we won't even recognize them as things which they are wrong. We won't even look at them as a transgression, as a sin, as a mistake, because we've accustomed ourselves to it. It's out of our mind. Do we watch the way we speak? Do we guard our eyes? Do we guard what we eat? Do we guard our hands on Shabbat to make sure we don't do something even inadvertently? Do we care about the things that we do, maybe not knowing if they are the right or wrong decision, based on what God told us, the way he commanded and he put it out, he laid it out in this perfect book, the book of Torah, the Chumash. And that's the connection Zera Shimshon says. The same way Joseph's brothers didn't recognize him, and when they were told who he was, they were at shock, they were spellbound, so too we will be spellbound in the world to come at our time of judgment, because we won't have an answer. So I look at this and I say, this is a very scary concept. It's something which can set an individual into even a depression. Like, there's no hope. But then I remind myself of what our sages in Pirkei Avot, the teachings of our fathers. In the Pirkei Avot, there's a couple lines of Ezu Chacham. Who is a wise person? Who's a happy person? Who's a strong person? So for who's a wise person, there's a couple examples given. One is given, Ezu Chacham halomed mikol ha'adam. Who's a wise person? They learn from other people. Why do I need to make the mistake? Let me learn from your mistakes. Why do I need to test if something's good or bad? Let me see how you did it. You succeeded, so let me succeed. That's one school of thought. Sometimes it works, sometimes the only way to learn that fire burns is to burn your own hand. But the smart people see others, and then they learn from it. That's a wise person. But listen, apropos to our topic. Ezu chacham haro'eh et hanolad. Who is a wise person? Someone who sees what's going to be born. Meaning, someone who sees what the consequences and the results of their actions are going to be. Now, I'm not talking about an oracle. I'm not talking about a fortune teller. No. It's just very simple. We know 1 + 1 = 2. I know that if I smile at you, you'll smile back at me. I know if I grin at you and I give you a nasty face, well, that's what will come back my way. I know, based on tonight's lecture and this midrash, that at 120, when we pass away, we will be judged. We will be spellbound. So why wait? Why set ourselves up to be stuck in that situation? If I tell you you're going to have a court date in such and such date from now, it would be foolish not to prepare. So the Torah, the Midrash, the Zera Shimshon are all telling us that day is coming. We will have a court date. The difference is for the better, for the worse, there's no set time on that court date. We don't know if it's in a year from now, in a decade from now, in a century from now, whatever it may be. Only for those who are 20 or younger. But since we know that day is coming, and the tricky part is we don't know when it is, why don't we stop and say, hey, what am I going to answer for why I don't pray with the minyan, why I don't put on tefillin, why I don't light Shabbat candles, why I don't choose the kosher option over the non-kosher option? Why don't I choose to say something nice instead of something not nice? Why don't I choose to act proper in business opposed to stealing? Why don't I treat my children or my spouse the way they deserve to be treated? Because all those questions are going to be are going to be asked to us, and we're not going to have an answer. So let's be smart. Ezu chacham, who's a wise person? Haro'eh hanolad, someone who's going to see what's coming their way. We know those questions are going to be asked. The problem is we're not going to have an answer because we never thought about it. So I challenge each and every one of us. Stop, pause, come up with answers for our shortcomings. You want to know the truth? We're not going to find too many answers. But just by asking the question and trying to seek an answer, that's going to promote within us to try to make the right decisions. Try to choose the right choice. That's the point of this midrash. That's the point of the Zera Shimshon over here. The Zera Shimshon says Yosef's brothers had nothing to answer because they were caught shocked because they never saw this coming. They did not have any answer. So too, when a person passes away, so let's learn from that and try to come up with answers. And again, most of the time we won't come up with an answer, so all that's going to do is that's going to push us forward to try to put our best foot forward in order to do the right thing and make those right decisions.